What's up, you guys? It's Julian. Today I'm going to be showing you how to do ADRIAN Mills and UEBERREST style hard techno. You can get this full template from this video at the top of the description on my website. All the samples and presets and all that are available right there. Thanks for the support, guys, and let's get started. Alright, so we're up at 160 BPM. First thing we have up here is this side chain. It's just a little piece of this kick that is side chaining everything, so it's a bit cleaner. And then we have our kick. So with this kick, all I've done here is I just made it a little bit shorter and then I converted it to mono. I was finding with the bass, if this kick is too long, they kind of clash, and then if you cut it, the clarity is just a lot tighter. So yeah, and then converting it to mono so the kick will be nice and punchy down the center. Then we have our bass line. So as far as the notes go, it's just C. However, the note length is very important. You'll notice this isn't a perfect 8th note. It's not a perfect 16th note. It's not even a perfect 32nd note. It's something in between. I just played around with the lengths. Right? Like you can take this and just get all the notes at once and maybe make them like this and see how that sounds. You can make it really short if you want, but just getting that like note length right really helps, right? So we got that. And then for the sound on this one, I'm using drift. Now, it's this bass here where we basically have these two oscillators. They're at the same octave, but they're kind of working together to make this waveform, which you see. And yeah, then I got this low pass filter with the envelope on it, set like that, just really short, and then the volume envelope is also like that. So it's a really simple sound. The thing here is the sends. So I have two. I've got this one, which is that little bit of reverb you hear. So the reason for this is because you want the reverb to be a bit more controlled on this bass. You want it to kind of fit behind the bass. So what I'm doing is I've got the reverb, right? Like it's being sent to that. Alright, then we kind of shape the sound with some overdrive and erosion. The overdrive also compresses the reverb a bit and brings it out. And then we sidechain it to the bass. And then high pass it. And this is essentially the reason for doing a send, is because if you sidechain it to the bass, you can make it so that it'll duck out of the way of the bass, but you still get that little bit of reverb tail on the end there. And then yeah, just high passing it so we don't have any weird stuff. And then there's also this send, which, as you can see, a lot of things are going through. Basically, like the synths are all going through this, right? So this is just a bit of high pass into an overdrive and then another high pass at the end. So we're basically just cutting out all the mud, just distorting the mids and highs, and then making sure that there's no extra low end added. Yeah, this is going through that a little bit. So here's without the sends. With. You can see it's subtle, but it just adds a little bit more dimension to the bass. Then we got our drums. So yeah, it's just a lot of really loud, hard kind of main drums, and then a lot of more chill background layers that are coming together for the percussion. So for the main drums, right, we got this big fat open hi-hat. I pitched it down a little bit and I made it shorter so it'll fit with that kick and bass groove. Right, so we got that. Then I've got the clap. The way this one's made is you take the 909 clap. You could also use an 808, but it's like these classic drum machines. A little bit of really short reverb and not much of it, but then you distort it heavily. And see, it brings that reverb out a little. And I heard this in a lot of the UEBERREST tracks. Another thing I heard in a lot of UEBERREST tracks is this. So basically it kind of like bounces off into this little snare. Like if you look at the MIDI, you can see it's on the 8th note on the upbeat from that clap. Right, so what we're doing here is it's a snare sample. I'll show you this one. Right, I brought the start time forward, and then I've actually got a low pass filter on it to start off with, which is right there, and then there's an envelope, so it kind of hits and then the filter closes. And then basically same kind of thing, a bit of reverb that's really short. and some distortion. And then see with that main clap, it just kind of bounces off of it nicely. And kind of adds to that overall groove. Then we've got these percussion layers. Starting with this one. So this one's meant to just add some kind of like high-end sizzle. What it is it's all these little sounds. It's this drum rack I found over here. Right, playing this pattern with a bunch of hi-hats and like that little kind of rim shot with the reverb. And then actually a bit of grain delay. To kind of give it some ear candy, like you can hear. It's cool, it kind of washes it out a little bit and gives it some nice granular texture. I've got an auto pan to make it sound sidechain, and then a high pass filter. Then we got this. So what's going on here is these two breakbeat chops. This is from one break, and then this is from another one, and then I'm just duplicating those a bunch of times. Then what we're doing is we're compressing it to get everything like an even level. And then this auto pan here, which you can see is doing a 16th note volume shape, so it's like then the overdrive you can hear, and then this auto pan to make it kind of sidechain, right? And then a high pass filter. Right, so then you put that together with the other one. Then we got this one, which is really just in the high end. That's the original sample. I high passed it, so it's, like I said, just really the high highs. And then the auto pan to make it bounce off the cake. And then the last one is this rave loop. Just to fill in some mid-range, because these were quite a bit just up high, right? And then you add this. It adds a lot to that overall groove. And yeah, that's just being high passed. So those are all the drums. Then we move down to the synths, starting with this 303. So what's going on here is this 2-bar pattern. It's literally just this whole thing duplicated over and over, right? It's really simple as far as notes go. It's just C sharp and C across a few different octaves. And you can see what we're doing is we're using the lower octave and then jumping up to the higher one at the end of every bar to kind of like create, right, that pattern. The other thing here is the note length. So you can really get a lot of mileage out of this, like gliding into short notes, having short notes in between these, and like you can make a whole different pattern just playing with this, you know, like if I make these short and then maybe make that one longer. Right, it's a whole different thing. So definitely something to think about as far as the acid lines go. For the sound on this one, it's made with Operator. I'm just using one saw wave. That's all you need. Super short release. And what we're doing is it's like a bandpass filter. So let me just turn off all the processing. Here's what it sounds like. So there's the saw wave. We've got, it's monophonic and we're using the glide. Then the bandpass filter. So it has a bit of distortion on it because I have the hard shaper and the filter drive all the way up. And then we're also moving that with this LFO here. Then I'm cutting out the low end into this distortion. And so you see why. It's essentially to just get rid of all the kind of muddy stuff going into the distortion. And then we're going to really mostly distort the mids and highs. And it's going to be a lot cleaner and more like juicy sounding. We're sidechaining this. And then there's a high pass filter at the end. And that's also going through that distortion send a little bit that I showed you. We've got this one. So this is something I learned from the UEBERREST tracks, is like using a stab to kind of create a lead pattern. So the first thing here is notice this is a very simple lead pattern. Right, like it's not actually that many notes. It's mostly just focused around this one and kind of just jumping up in very simple ways, right? So that's the first thing. Because we're using a stab for this. If you listen, right, like that has like multiple notes in it. So it's not going to exactly play like just a minor scale. Like if I just play like, right? It's not the greatest. You really just have to kind of pick notes in the scale and stick to a few of them to make this really work. But yeah, so we got that. Then we have a little bit of short reverb, and then we're distorting it. I think the distortion is really important if you really want that like UEBERREST kind of texture. Even though it's only at 28%, we're sidechaining, and then we're high passing, plus we're sending it into the distortion bus. And then we've got this vocal.
Trying to count my paper, trying to count my paper, trying to count my.
So this is like one of these vocal chops you hear in a lot of, especially like the 240 and Adrian Mills tracks. What we got going on here is this.
Trying to count my paper, trying to count my.
So it's this vocal chop I did, right? And I pitched it up.
Trying to count my.
That's the original.
Trying to count my paper, trying to.
Right, I noticed these guys kind of pitch the vocals up a lot more than they do like pitch them down. I think it fits better over the really fast beats, right? So we got that. Then it's going into a bit of pedal.
Trying to count my paper, trying to.
Just at 28%. High pass.
Trying to count my paper.
Really important because there's a lot of stuff that's already happening in that mid range that this would get in the way of. Sidechain.
Trying to count my paper, trying to.
And then I bring it into the distortion bus.
Trying to count my paper, trying to count my.
Which is subtle, but you hear that just brings out the highs a little bit more and makes it fit in the mix. So that's gonna be it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like this video as well as subscribe. Let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, you can get this full template at the top of the description on my website. Thanks for the support, everybody. Every little bit helps, and I'll see you tomorrow with another video.